live in San Diego, California. I am Dr. Jeremy Pettis. I'm joined by
Dr. Steve Edelman.
And you want to tell us about our special guest?
Yeah, Adriana Valencia, a long-term friend of ours, excellent dietitian, has been in tons of our videos on our video vault, and she has been one of the most instrumental people in our diabetes clinic for years. She now works for Insulet, the Omnipod company, and is here to share some of her wisdom with us.
Nice to see all of you again. Looking forward to chatting here with this live event.
So, we're going to go through a lot of different topics, but to kind of set it off, we wanted to kind of empathize with you all that, Steve and I have been living with diabetes for a long time, and it can seem like there's so many different rules of what you mostly can't eat that it seems like it's overwhelming all the time. So we actually made a little video about it that I hope you guys can relate to, that we're going to kick it off. So take it away, Eric. Oh yeah, I'll have some chips.
You can't touch this. You can't touch this. You can't touch this.
Yep, okay, can't touch this, I get it. Sorry. Okay, all right.
You can't touch this.
Oh, you've got to be kidding me. What can I eat? Can someone please just tell me what I can eat? All right, well, I'm sure, yeah, if you're living with diabetes or, love somebody that has diabetes, yes, you can relate. And you get told different things, watch how many calories you're eating because people are looking, to be mindful about their weight. Look how many carbs you're eating because, that affects your blood sugars. But then what about if you have other things with kidney disease? You're worried about
fat.
Sodium, protein, like there can be all these things. So it can become almost this adversarial relationship sometimes with food of, yes, food tastes good and you want to enjoy what you eat, but you also want to stay healthy, and it's enough to make you scream sometimes. So how do we get our heads right about what we should be eating that also jives with who we are as people? So
yeah, adversarial too is with your friends and relatives who don't know squat about diabetes, and they say, should you be eating that? And I usually say, yeah, watch this. When I got diagnosed way back, they had one way to eat if you were diabetic, and I still remember this as a kid. I got a little sheet they gave to my mom, for breakfast, 1 scoop of cottage cheese, rye crisp crackers, and some type of fruit. And that was it. And I didn't like cottage cheese, and I still don't like rye crisp crackers. And is there such a thing as a diabetic diet? So that's what we're going to discuss today.
So that's our first question. So we'll get into the details, but when people say, they come to you and say, probably I have diabetes, what's the diet I should be on, or what is a diabetes diet? Where do you start?
Yeah, that's probably the most common question I get whenever I would review information with diet. And my answer is really, there's no magic bullet and there's no magic pill, no magic answer for a diet. It really just depends on you and what you prefer to eat. There's a way for you to still enjoy foods that you like pasta and rice, tamales like we were talking about earlier, and desserts, and fit them into a healthy meal plan. I feel the most important thing is really looking at your balance and your serving size versus saying eliminating food groups completely and completely restricting certain things, because that's not a way to live and enjoy your life. So if you look actually on the American Diabetes Association website, they have this diabetes plate method that really just stresses the importance of eating half of your plate with non-starchy vegetables.
Actually eat the plate?
Well, not actually
That'll
eat the
slow
plate,
you down
there
big
you
time.
go. That'll fill you up, not give you too many calories, right?
Classic Steve.
Well, the way you said it.
But really, I like that because it doesn't restrict anything. It allows half the plate to be non-starchy vegetables. Then you have your portion of protein and carbohydrate. And then it emphasizes kind of like a low-calorie drink. I like that because it doesn't say no to anything, right? As long as you can fit it into your meal plan, you can kind of fit it into this plate. you can enjoy it with your family and friends and not feel that you're restricting anything.
So what are some good examples of non-starchy veggies, if that's supposed to be kind of half your plate?
Thank you.
Yeah, good question. So you can eat those raw, you can cook them. Examples of them would be things like, obviously things like salad, you can do carrots, you can do celery, you can do jicama, you can do broccoli, asparagus, eggplant. Really the ones that I would always tell patients that count as the starches would essentially be things like corn, peas, potatoes.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that you wouldn't count in that group, and you would count more towards your carbohydrate group.
The delicious ones.
I mean, I like broccoli.
Yeah.
You guys don't like broccoli?
Yeah,
You
but
can
I don't
cook it
like
different ways.
when I have asparagus, my urine really doesn't smell very good.
Well, maybe you can steer clear of that low carb one if you don't like the effects of it.
I always thought carrots had a lot of starch in it.
So, carrots are kind of one of those that people kind of put in the middle, but do you think it's better to have a big bowl of carrots or to have a big bowl of a heavier carbohydrate food? Definitely.
Big bowl of ice cream is way
definitely
better.
going to be the carrots for your blood sugar, right? So I definitely still consider carrots more of a non-starchy vegetable. If you eat a very large amount, they can give you a blood sugar spike, but I always tell patients it's between that and what else.
And what about Brussels sprouts? They kind of in between.
Brussels
too?
sprouts are kind of in the middle too.
Yeah.
So they're kind of similar to me when it comes to the carrots. So I would say if you like eating carrots and Brussels sprouts, really the best thing you should do is kind of watch your blood sugar trend and see how much it affects you to know, like, okay, maybe I should just give 1 unit to cover this on top of what I'm already eating because I know it's going to give me a little bump later.
But the truth is, when we go to restaurants, which, Brussels sprouts are the in thing these days.
Yeah.
Even carrots.
Cauliflower is making a comeback.
That's
too.
right.
Oh, it is?
Cauliflower is.
Pureed cauliflower. But, they put brown sugar on the
Yeah.
on
There's
it.
usually some kind
bacon.
of teriyaki.
There's like a glaze.
Yeah.
And the carrots too, the sweet carrot things.
The honey carrots, yeah.
When you say follow your blood sugar, yeah, it's easy if you have a CGM. If you
Right.
don't, you're gonna be pricking your finger.
You're going to have to be pricking. So it's just kind of a matter of trial and error, like with a lot of things, right? But I would definitely say Brussels sprouts and carrots are going to be probably much better choices than other things that you could fill your plate with. And if you enjoy eating those can definitely be part of the plate method, I would say.
What? Can I just jump in?
Yeah.
I think one of the big challenges, all the different ethnic groups we have in this country, whether you're Asian or, let's say Latina, and you are Latina, and I think Mexican, I love Mexican food, but it always wrecks my blood sugars. The beans, the rice, the
Yeah.
tortilla, and maybe I think that's the hardest thing, because if you have diabetes, you can't just say to someone who grew up their whole life eating, tortillas for breakfast and say, sorry, you can only have one little tiny one with 1-inch diameter. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, I think that's a common barrier for patients. And what I would say is try not to think about what you can't have. Think about all these new things that you can add in now, right? So kind of focus on things that you can eat. And really, you can eat everything. It's just a matter of portion control. And that should really be something that all of us should be focusing on, whether we have diabetes or not, right? But for example, with that tortilla example, I would tell a patient, maybe in the morning you can have, instead of eating 5, my grandpa used to eat 5, right? Maybe have 2, right? That's a much better cut off than 5. And then have some egg whites with it, that way you don't have to worry about cholesterol issues later. You can have a lean protein. That's going to really fill you up. You can still have your salsa on the side if you want, or, maybe substitute a tortilla for some legumes, and there you go. So you can definitely still enjoy foods that are part of the culture, but just kind of make them a little bit healthier. For example, I'm Mexican and my family does eat a lot of carbs at parties, but now everyone's gotten in the habit of having a big salad plate there, right? There's always vegetables. So now when you come to my house for a party, there's not just rice, beans, and carbs, right? There's a lot of other veggies. And my family has now incorporated that as well. So it's kind of a matter of putting it like, really, even though maybe only 1 or 2 people have diabetes, we should all really be striving
Right.
to eat this way, not just somebody with diabetes.
And I think that's kind of the ultimate answer to the question, right? Is there really is no diabetes diet.
No.
It's just
Right.
eating healthy the way that we all kind of should. And if you have diabetes, you might just need to be paying more attention to it. But it can be a way of getting the whole family kind of like
Right.
healthier. But you mentioned something that specifically that I want to put to rest, because this has been an ongoing debate between Steve and I on eggs and cholesterol, because I love eggs in the morning. I love eggs all the time. And Steve's been eating egg beaters his whole life to try to keep his cholesterol down. And I think that eggs have kind of gotten a bad rap
Yeah.
in terms of cholesterol, and that
Here we go again.
Yeah. So what do you tell people with eggs and cholesterol?
That's a good question. So I do agree that eggs have kind of become a little bit controversial in a sense that they did get a bad rap in the beginning. I would say that if you're somebody who cholesterol levels are normal in good range, right, then you can have a yolk a day would be fine, right? But if you're somebody who has higher cholesterol levels, I would recommend just having egg whites only. And if you're somebody who wants to trial it, if you have a little bit of elevated cholesterol and you switch to egg whites, you might be surprised next time you go in at the difference you see in your cholesterol level. But the entire egg itself is a very complete source of protein, so I'm not trying to completely tell people to cut the yolk out. It just kind of depends where you're at in terms of your cholesterol level overall.
I totally agree with that, but you left out one fact.
Right.
What?
You and I are on very expensive
No,
PCSK9.
well,
Hey, can I
cholesterol
finish?
lowering medications.
Yeah, that cost $1,000 a month if you don't have insurance. So you're saying since you're on this
Yes,
Repatha
and
or
my
Praluent,
values are normal, then I can have.
eat it, yeah.
But nobody eats a yolk a day.
So I would say
I agree.
No, so that's what I'm saying. So usually I would say you can do mix them.
What if I don't eat a yolk for 4 days? Can I have 4 on Friday?
It's like alcohol, right?
I'm gonna say no to that one. I
Okay.
think it's better to spread it out. But like for example, you're right. No, most people don't eat just one yolk, right? But so you're gonna have more. You can say I'm gonna have a yolk and then just use the white, or then take out your carton of the egg beaters and add that in to make it more filling for you.
I mean,
You have a
I admit,
balance.
Jeremy, I love regular eggs.
Yeah.
I boiled a bunch the other day, regular eggs, and made egg salad sandwich. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
And just try to mix it up a little bit.
Well,
Yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
we should show people a little clip of this video that honestly is one of my favorite videos that we have ever done at TCYD, which is saying something because we've done a lot. And what we did is we actually went on site to a grocery store, and Eric put little GoPros on our grocery carts, and then Steve and I went around and actually picked out things that we would actually buy for breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks. Kind of on our own, did whatever we wanted. We came back and talked about it. And then Adriana actually watched our video later. She wasn't there with us and just commented on our choices. And I think it was really educational and very practical because these are things that we weren't trying to be like good for you, you know what I mean? So we have a clip of that we'll just give you a little taste, and you can find it online on our video vault. So Eric, take it away. Got a lot of different bread options because when we think diabetes, we think, oh my God, bread, it might as well be strychnine, right? But so it was interesting. I came and I saw this keto culture bread and I thought, oh, that's interesting. Let me see what that's got. So it's 12 grams of carbs per slice. And then I picked up this Dave's Killer Bread, which I love. It's so good. And guess what? 14 grams per slice.
Not that much difference.
Not that much difference. So, again, be careful. Like when something is labeled keto or low carb, make sure you still are looking at the label. And if it's not that much different, you might as well get what you like. And hopefully Adriana can weigh in on maybe some really good low carb or low carb options for making sandwiches. Sourdough is my favorite, but this slice per slice is, I think, 20 something.
That's why they only sell half a loaf at a time.
31 grams of carbs per slice of sourdough. And I love sourdough. That's my favorite thing to make sandwiches.
So it's funny that Dr. Pettis and Edelman bring up the sandwiches. Sandwiches can actually be pretty complete meal in the sense that usually have your protein, your fat, your carb, and you can add in some kind of veggies like lettuce and tomato are the most common. Now, I do agree with Dr. Pettis when he says that you do have to be careful with the labels, kind of like we touched on with the cereal as well. And I agree, it's 100% okay to have regular bread. If you want to have regular bread, that's fine. You don't need to purchase a keto bread. Those products sometimes can have higher fat content, a lot more ingredients in them, and are also much more expensive than regular.
Did you like them?
Yeah.
So, I really think that's a great video. And the egg discussion comes up in that too, if you didn't get enough of it here. But also some practical stuff, like, to be honest, I'm not somebody who's chopping, vegetables. I don't have time to do that. So ways of, buying prepackaged, like fresh things like that all kind of comes up in that video. So check it out. But Steve, I know you had a question that you wanted to ask.
Yeah,
Adriana.
you know what? The age-old debate is, and it's gone up and back. Should you eat breakfast? Should you not eat breakfast? And I've heard it go both ways. And to me, it's also depends on your personal habits and preference. But what do you say to one of your clients that just says, do I have to eat breakfast?
Right. Of course, like the theme is, it just depends on kind of your lifestyle, of course, but the majority of people, when you don't eat breakfast, what ends up happening later is you end up eating a really large snack, which could have been equivalent to the calories of breakfast you would have had, or end up overeating at lunchtime. So most people, I would say, would benefit from eating something for breakfast. Now, breakfast is probably one of those meals people struggle with the most because we're trying to get to work, we're trying to drop the kids off, there's a lot going on in the morning. I would say really focusing on keeping it simple and trying to find a balance of protein and carbohydrate is key for that. But if you ask me, I would say that it's good to have something in the morning, not to keep blood sugars from dropping in any way, because that shouldn't be happening if you have a good regimen. It's more just to keep you from overeating later on in the day, right? Like saying, oh my gosh, I'm so hungry now, I'm going to go to get my coffee and now I'm going to get a cake pop because I'm starving, right?
Yeah.
Or just eating a really large lunch because you're like, oh, I didn't eat breakfast, so I can have this, 1,200 calorie lunch now, no problem.
Well, I think it's one thing that you said there is really important is that forever there's been this idea that people with diabetes have to eat
Right.
At regular intervals, especially this like bedtime snack and
Right.
these things. That was when people were back on an MPH. So if you have diabetes, you can miss meals. Like there's nothing wrong with that, just like anybody else can. So, but what you said is a little bit like contrary to the current trend now of intermittent fasting is like really the way to go. So how do you balance that? Like, some people, maybe they should have a snack. Some people should try intermittent fasting. How do you know if that's going to work for them?
Yeah.
Hey, before you answer that, I was just going to add something what you said. I mean, we're both, into metabolism being at the university, and we know that if you have diabetes, you could really bounce up in the morning, way higher than if you ate the same thing at dinner time. So in a way, avoiding a lot of carbs for breakfast is a good thing. And if you're on a continuous glucose monitor, you've discovered already just waking up is going to raise your blood sugar. So, but and to follow up to Jeremy's question that you're going to answer is, I don't feel like eating in the morning, and I don't think I overeat later on, and I don't go for a snack at 10 normally. So
Yeah.
I would say it depends, but you're
Right.
probably right overall.
Right.
If you have to fight not eating something, you're probably going to overeat.
Right. So in your case, if you came to me and asked me that question, I would say, no, then you don't need to eat breakfast. And for your situation, that it works for you. Now with intermittent fasting, I think there's a video also on TCOID's website about that, but really that's kind of like an umbrella. Most people follow time restricted eating underneath that umbrella where they eat usually during 8-hour time period, right? I think that's kind of become kind of more of a diet people are trying to look into because it's not restrictive. When I had somebody who would ask me about that, I would tell them that I thought it was good in the sense that it wasn't really restricting what you were eating, right? I think if it works for your lifestyle, it would be good to consider following and trying, because what happens essentially is you're eating during the shortened period of time, so you're a lot of times eliminating these late night snacks, which we're usually not making the best choices. There's also been a lot of studies on how intermittent fasting affects things like memory and your heart health. So I do think that it's a diet worth looking into if it fits your lifestyle. But I think it can also be really hard to stop eating after 5 o'clock if you want to go out with friends and socialize. If you have a busy lifestyle, you have kids, it can be hard to kind of fit that in.
Yeah.
But I do think it's something that can be beneficial. I think it's really just looking at things like keto and intermittent fasting are also ones we get a lot of questions about, and kind of seeing how you can adapt that to fit you,
Right.
right?
So I would say the most common intermittent fasting is like when people will try to eat between noon and 8 p.m., so 8 hours, and then not eat from 8 p.m.
Right.
to noon the next day. It can work for some people. It really is in vogue right now in terms of the different effects it has on metabolism, et cetera. We actually were trying it the other day where we missed breakfast and we're waiting for lunch, and we have a little clip of us waiting to eat, I think. So
Okay,
let's
let's
take
show
a look at that, see how it worked. Man, is it noon yet?
Not yet.
God. Oh my God. Oh man. Man, this intermittent fasting sucks. Oh my God. So listen, we don't have an official statement on intermittent fasting. I think it's a fantastic diet for people to try if it works for them. We're just kind of poking fun at, like you were saying, sometimes you can overeat if you miss a meal for breakfast. But you're going to talk about our podcast.
Yeah. I should. If you haven't heard, we have a really popular podcast on all different topics, and we've been doing it for a year. And I'd say the one that is the most popular, just behind the science of type 1 diabetes, is intermittent fasting by one of the faculty at UCSD, Pritika. And it was really good. And so it's something you can listen to. And she goes into the different aspects of the intermittent fasting diet in more detail, because there's many different ways you can do it.
Right.
But I think Adriana talked about the basic. And I think you're right, Jeremy. Maybe just because it works the best for me is, you have dinner and then you don't eat anything till late morning. But I do have coffee, and I put milk in my coffee. So it's...
So I would say...
But no eggs.
The other kind of like main topic that comes up with diabetes diets is low carb / keto. So maybe tell us a little bit about that, when you would recommend it, all that.
I think that for people who have a continuous glucose monitor, they'll see, kind of as you mentioned earlier, Dr. Edelman, that really you see the effects of when you eat a lower carb meal, right? Obviously, keeps your blood sugar steadier. Do I tell all patients they should follow a low carb diet? No. I think the best thing to do is look at, first of all, kind of assess what your goal is, and then from there say, like I mentioned about my grandpa earlier who was eating 5 tortillas, cutting back to 2 was a great change in his carbohydrates, right? So I would say kind of assessing where you're coming from first. I do think that watching your carbohydrate amount at meals helps you eat more balanced in general and helps keep blood sugars from spiking as rapidly. Kind of the most popular one that we brought up already was keto. People ask about that all the time. I would say that you can kind of modify the keto to fit your lifestyle and say, like, okay, I notice when I eat dinner at night, I'm going to bed with these high numbers, I'm waking up really high. Maybe I'll just do 15, 20 grams at dinner only, and the rest of the day I'll aim for 40 grams for breakfast and lunch. So kind of finding what fits your lifestyle and your goals, I think, is important when you think about low carb eating. But if you look at it, yes, low carb eating, being more conscious of your carbs is definitely going to help with blood sugar trends.
Yeah, carbs is calories, and it also, if you're on insulin, it's going to help you determine your dose. But I would say you got to be really careful on the marketing of these companies towards low carbs, because you got me when we were shopping at Gelson's. I thought I picked out like a low carb pizza crust or pizza, and when we started looking at the labels, the one you picked out was regular, and it was less than the low carb one.
Yeah.
So I like cauliflower crust pizzas. There's some places that are good. It's not total carbless, but it's less calories, and I can tell because I follow my blood sugar.
Yeah.
It doesn't spike.
I would say yes. That was something I learned from that video a lot, that these things that are called keto or low carb are not necessarily that, so you still have to make sure you're looking at the labels. But I'll also say that most people with diabetes, especially people on insulin type 1, kind of gravitate towards a lower carb diet. I know that you and I do. What are the exact numbers of carbs I eat in each meal? It varies, but I just know that I can make some substitutions that are lower carb, and you don't have to take as much insulin. You can kind of get off the roller coaster a little bit. So I'm not over the top about it, as I know you aren't either, but I just try what I can to kind of limit carbs. And we actually have a video that we made.
I was going to say, mention the challenge, yeah.
Well, which challenge? Because I was going to do another video.
Which one were you going to do?
Oh, the carb counting one, where we actually showed us different meals, and Steve and I had to guess how many carbs were in each of these kind of things, like we had never seen before. And some we did pretty good, and some we were way off.
Yeah.
So the lesson there was just kind of look at what you're eating. But what I was going to say is we have a video of a way that maybe you can make something that you love a little bit lower carb. So take it away, Eric. All right, listen up, Burger. We're going to eat you, okay? And we don't want you to make a big deal out of it and make our blood sugars go all high.
Hey. Don't look at me like that. We go through this every frickin' time. Please stop the whining.
All right, we all know what happened last time when I ate your brother. My blood sugar went through the roof, and I took a ton of insulin, and then my blood sugar went low, and yeah, I said some hurtful things, okay?
We know. We said we're sorry. Listen, we took our insulin 20 minutes early. We ran around the block. We skipped the French fries. Can you just meet us halfway?
Hey, did you just go low carb on us? You look amazing. And you know we can never stay mad at you. Get over here. All right, so obviously another fun video. And the idea there is that, yeah, like I actually love In-N-Out. And as you can see, both of our videos had In-N-Out in it.
We really scarfed it down.
And you can get things protein style, which is, you know, still like the flavors of the burger and animal style and whatever, but much lower carb.
And lettuce, yeah.
And in the video there, we actually did like half the bun. So another option where you can go kind of like more full, low carb, or at least, you know, kind of limit the carbs or, you know, full carb. So there's always a spectrum.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's important to say there's a spectrum. There are some really zealots out there, and more power to all of you, that they stick to like less than 30 grams for the whole day. But I think most of us are realists. People like carbs. We just find practical ways to limit it. Well, let me ask you this, Adriana. Hi. What about meal replacement techniques, or at least things you can do to eat less at a big meal?
Yeah, so I would say there are certain things, some patients will do like certain shakes like glucerna, for example, or make a protein shake at home. That can be used as a meal replacement if you're working on weight loss. That can be something high in protein that will keep you full, and something quick in the morning that you can do as well, right? Or, you know, if you're not a breakfast eater, but then you find you eat a large snack at 10, you can add something like one of those meal replacement shakes in to keep your appetite at bay and, you know, have a little protein punch there.
Yeah, the glucerna touts is very low in calories and high in protein.
Right.
And I know one patient who puts it in a blender with some ice, blends the heck out of it. It's like a little milkshake. Now, one thing I discovered, this is not on the approved label, is that I made a bourbon glucerna shake. And Eric was here. He, our videographer, producer, director. It was really good.
Yeah.
Now that's just my recommendation, not anybody else's.
And you get a protein punch with your alcohol. And I mean, that sounds good.
You're
Well
right.
balanced.
And it's hard alcohol, so it doesn't really wreck your blood sugar. Another good video that we did on our website.
Okay, so I know there's a ton to cover on this topic, and we have a lot of information in our video vault. We've done podcasts on weight loss for type 1 and type 2, so we realize we can't get into everything. So we're going to try to get to your guys' questions and just going through them as many as we can here. So this is a good one. So it says, Adriana, I've been hearing negative things about sugar substitutes. Are they okay in moderation, small amounts? Like, what do you tell people about, you know, Splenda, et cetera?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that sugar substitutes have always been kind of like a controversial topic. I think we've talked about them before.
You and I did a whole video just
Yeah.
on the
Right.
dose of Dr. E in the days before P was born. But we went through all of them. And I remember I'm
No, go ahead.
answering. I remember asking you, and they're basically, the FDA puts certain limits and maximum allowable packets or whatever you call it. And I remember, I like Splenda personally, and you said that they allow 110 packets a day.
It was like a large amount based on
Yeah,
your weight. It was,
yeah.
yeah. So if what he said is true, and that video can always be reviewed for more information. But really, if you're somebody who feels nervous about doing something like Splenda or Equal, you can always try doing one of those sugar substitutes that are considered more natural. Like Splenda makes it natural. There's things, there's stevia. There's another one I'm forgetting the name of with like a little bird
Monk
on
fruit?
it. Monk fruit is another really good one that doesn't have an aftertaste. Those are considered more natural, like artificial sweeteners in a sense. So if you're feeling nervous about doing like a Splenda or Equal, you can always consider switching to one of those as well.
Yeah, I think the other issue we talked about on the video was that, you know, there's been some data out there saying that, people who take artificial sweeteners causes weight gain. And that is not true. They have these epidemiologists that look for associations, and oh my God, people who take sweetener stuff, they're diabetic or they're heavy. That's why they use it.
Yeah.
And the alternative is drinking a can of regular soda that's 180 wasted calories.
Yeah.
So, you know,
And also the kind of the older stuff was with aspartame or NutraSweet and like cancer risk, and
Yeah.
that's been debunked. So
Oh, yeah.
basically, Steve and I use a lot of these artificial sweeteners, and yes, for us, it's clearly better than, you know, the actual, like a Diet Coke versus a Coke is a no-brainer.
yeah.
Right.
Anything else you want to say
I will
about
just
that?
say, just to kind of wrap up that topic, which is a really good question, that sometimes I feel like it comes up a little bit more because gut health is becoming very prominent and people are becoming more aware. And I will say that if you're somebody who's really working on your gut health, that the artificial sweeteners are not going to promote good gut health in a sense. So maybe that's where some of that is coming up too, just so
Take a probiotic, you're all set.
All right, meals on the go. When you might be traveling, and for me, not even traveling, like you're just at work. This person says, my head goes to some kind of protein bar, maybe a smoothie, yogurt smoothie, and that doesn't seem too healthy. I think that's fantastic. Or yeah, we're all, hungry at lunch or snack and grab some bar or Jamba Juice, which might not be great. So meals on the go, how do you help people with that?
So, like if you knew that you were going to have a busy day at work, for example, I kind of travel around the county sometimes to do trainings, and sometimes I'm in my car a lot. So if I know that, I have like a little stash of different protein bars in my car so I don't get bored. And then if I know I'm doing that, I'll get those little packs that have like the nuts and the cheese in there. They're like those little kind of protein packs.
You pull off the top.
Yeah, you pull off the top. Some of them have dried fruit. I'll pack some of those. I keep those in my fridge. Also, they do make some of those kind of smaller yogurts that you can drink that have probiotics in them. So usually I'll get like a little bag when I'm on my way, and I put a little kind of like a little ice pack, and I pack those kinds of things in there. But as long as if you're somebody who that happens too often, that you're running around, you want to try to keep things like those protein packs, the Cheez-Its, they make those little kind of semi-healthier Uncrustable sandwiches, things that you can just pack that are quick for you to eat while you're on the go, to avoid getting things like the Jamba Juice or the Glucerna, like Dr. Edelman had mentioned earlier. So if you're somebody who struggles with that because of your job or just things going on in your life, I would consider really looking at what kinds of quick foods you enjoy eating that you can keep in your home that are readily accessible for you to just grab.
All right, so thank you. Another question. I'm trying to lose 15 pounds. I mean, isn't everybody? It's really hard to get through the day on a restricted calorie intake. Any suggestions for weight loss tips for a type 2? So I might just kind of take this because it's such a big topic. But again, we did a podcast on this. We've had multiple kind of lectures. Obviously, whenever you're talking about food, weight comes up.
Judy Luna was here.
Yeah, specifically for type 2s, obviously the diet stuff is going to be huge, but all the options with the medications now are something that if you have type 2 diabetes, talk to your provider about maximizing your therapy for weight loss. These meds that we always talk about, like Ozempic, Wegovy, these injectables that can make people lose 15, 20% of their body weight. So, if you're 200 pounds, that's, 40 pounds that people can lose. So it's not to say you take these medications and just, go hog wild with, forget about all this. You have to do it kind of in combination. So these topics are all very, very important, and lots of information on our website.
Yeah, I'll say one thing, let Adriana jump in. As you've been hearing, drugs like Ozempic, getting a lot of, TV play, and that a lot of non-diabetics are getting prescriptions for weight loss. And people who are not that overweight and they want to lose 10 pounds before their son's bar mitzvah, like, give me a break. We got to use it for people with diabetes because it helps blood sugars, protects their heart. So it's important to realize that, you might be a good candidate for one of these medications.
Yeah. So I think we'll maybe do two more, but this is a good broad topic also. What part of the food label is the most important part to look at when you're looking at something to see if it's diabetic friendly?
That's a good question. And there's, I think, a video in one of the vaults that we did about labels as well. But really, you want to look at, when you look at a nutrition label, it can feel overwhelming. I would say looking at the serving size is important, and that's on the very top of the label. Thank you, Eric. And then you can see that what's highlighted there is the total carbohydrates written in grams. Those would be the two key parts that I would recommend focusing on for kind of assessing your carbohydrate intake for what you're going to eat.
What about this whole thing about sugar, alcohol?
Good question. So a lot of those low carb products, when you look at them, they'll be like the Dreyer's ice cream, net carbs, it's like 3 grams, and you're like, what? I can have ice cream and it's 3 grams of carb? What happens is a lot of those lower carb and keto friendly products, they subtract out the entire amount of the sugar, alcohol, and the entire amount of fiber. So you have to be very careful with that, because for sugar alcohols, you only subtract half of that out from the total carb. So example, if the sugar alcohol was 10, you would only subtract 5 from the total carb to get the net, not the entire 10. So that can be kind of frustrating when you're looking at labels for those specific products.
Yeah, I carry a pocket calculator.
I know it adds another monkey in the wrench there.
Yeah, you're right.
And what about like glycemic index? When people talk about that, complex carbs, simple carbs, how much does that matter?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that I would say in the diabetes and nutrition world, we've kind of moved away from using glycemic index because it can be impacted by when something was picked and harvested, the way you cook something. So I feel like we don't really teach that method anymore. That used to be a way that I think carb counting was taught a while ago, but now we more just focus on the balance of the plate, like the plate method, versus kind of worrying about adding something else into it.
Yeah, isn't it right that high glycemic index means it just gets absorbed super fast?
Right, and the glycemic index is impacted, like I said, by various things. So I would just suggest sticking more towards the plate method and overall balance versus kind of getting in the weeds with the glycemic index.
So I think, wrapping it up, I mean, we just simply can't talk enough about this topic. I mean, food in general, when it comes to diabetes, a lot going on. I think take-home messages is that, being proactive about coming up with your own methods of, your approach to diet, when you're eating, if you're going to adopt some intermittent fasting, low carb or not. And then when it comes to actual meals, planning out ways that you can reduce potentially carbs or calories. I like the idea of filling up half your plate with starches. I'm not even close, so I gotta like double or triple my non-starchy carbs.
Get a bigger
veggies.
plate.
But I think hopefully this information has been helpful. It's actually, I've learned a lot, talking to you as always. And I don't know, any closing thoughts?
I would
for
just
people?
say, you've given our listeners and myself hope that you can eat the food you like, that you grew up with, according to your ethnic background, and still control your diabetes. And it comes down to portion control and making some substitutions that you like.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like that's really the best takeaway. You can still enjoy what you like, just watching the portions and kind of modifying things a little bit.
Yeah, and don't forget our podcast and the video vault. We have so much.
Yeah, the last video vault one I'll mention is that Steve and I actually went to a buffet and, picked
real
out
buffet.
different like things that we would eat and kind of talked about good choices and things like that, that we picked out that were maybe good or maybe not so good. But the idea there, again, is being practical.
And your salad was so wimpy.
Yeah. It was your fried chicken, it was delicious. Well, thanks for listening. Thanks, Adriana, for hanging out with us. We're actually going to do a podcast with Adriana that we'll record now and probably air a little bit later. So keep an eye out or an ear out for that one. And we'll see you guys later.
Okay.